Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for day number 21 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie is one from the year 1980, a found footage horror movie that has quite the reputation, especially when it comes to disturbing and controversial cinema. But I'm happy to say I feel like there's become a lot more appreciation for this movie over the past handful of years, like especially like the past 5 years or so. A lot more people like acknowledging its impact on cinema, especially at the time, and I guess carrying over to current day. But like I said, found footage horror movie, one that really changed the landscape for found footage as well, from the year 1980, Cannibal Holocaust. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of this movie, but I guess for those who have no idea what this movie is, that title alone is just screaming reputation. But before I get into my thoughts of Cannibal Holocaust, let's quickly go into the plot for this one. So the opening of this movie, we're told about this film crew who head off into the jungle to try and document this pretty much unseen cannibal tribe, and document things going on in the jungle. However, this crew do not return home, so now another crew is sent off into the jungle to try and figure out answers. Where did these people go? What happened to them? Can we try and recover the footage? And the movie's kind of broken up into two parts. You've got the crew that are going off into the jungle to try and find these other crew and their footage and figure out what's going on. And then the second half of the movie is them coming back with the footage and us watching it found footage style and seeing what happened to them. So that's pretty much the plot that we have here for this movie. This is a film that I feel like I've just had a spurt of like rewatching again and again over the past handful of years. I saw this one for the first time at probably way too young of an age, but like I said, with the more appreciation that this movie's found over the past handful of years, and so it's one that, I can't say that it has been too long passing since the last time I checked it out, but excited to get into it to discuss Cannibal Holocaust in today's review. So I think it is safe to say, and no surprise to anybody whatsoever, the movie Cannibal Holocaust is not going to be for everybody, of course. The title of the movie alone is going to rub people the wrong way, and they're not going to want to check it out. That's fine. With Cannibal Holocaust being the title, there's obviously cannibalism, so really nasty gore, brutal effects, blood, things like that. It's got a lot of nudity. I can't say the word, but it's got grape scenes, brutal kills, and I guess while I'm on the topic for brutal kills, I won't beat around the bush. A lot of people are aware there are real life animal killings in this movie, slash animal cruelty, I guess, which is honestly like the main reason now I hear people say that they don't like this movie, they won't rewatch this movie. People that have heard about the real life animal killings and haven't seen this movie, that's the reason that I most often hear say they're not going to check out Cannibal Holocaust 4, which is fair enough. I can't really argue it, to be honest. But the thing is, like, let me just first say, I 100% don't condone real life animal killings, and especially in the style that it's done in this movie. When I'm watching these scenes in this movie, it's really hard to stomach. I have to turn away. It is quite brutal, and it is a lot. It's easily the hardest things to watch in this movie. Like I said, I don't condone it. I'd like to think if, there was movies doing it nowadays in more modern times, people would definitely speak about it, and, it's something that we don't need to see anymore. But my thing is, I've sort of come to terms with it in Cannibal Holocaust. Again, I'm not trying to say I condone it or it's something that I'm happy viewing or whatever. But the thing is, like, we don't have a time machine. We can't go back and change it. It was different times. And even thinking of it like that, this movie came out in 1980. I like to think that 1980, we were a bit more ahead of it to not have animal killings. But then you also got to take in to consideration other factors. It's an Italian film, and they were filming this off in locations and in jungles and stuff where, some things become a little bit more questionable. Again, I'm not saying that it's okay, and I'd like to think it's something that we don't need to be seeing again, especially in more modern films. But like I said, it's gotten to the point where we can't go back and change it. It's something I've come to terms with somewhat in a movie like this one, and I don't think it's worth, being like, I'm never going to watch this movie again because of those certain elements that I don't like, or saying that the rest of the movie doesn't have merit because it's got animal killings. I just wanted to clear that up because it is a big talking point for this movie, and I guess for those who don't know, there's a scene where a muskrat is killed, and all of these animals are killed while being alive. So you've got a muskrat. The turtle is probably the hardest one to see. It goes on for so long, and it's probably the most prolific of all the animal killings in this one. There's a pig. The fucking monkey, I always forget about the monkey one, so that one catches me off guard. But yeah, there's some hard scenes to watch there for sure. But besides the real life animal killings, the gore for the human kills and everything, that are fake, of course, brutally awesome. The human kills in this movie are fantastic. I've heard people talk about how the kills are done and some of the behind the scene effects and having them explained, but still, like, one of the most prolific, well-known shots in this movie, the impalement on the spike, is so iconic, and it's just like, wow, it looks so fucking real. Like, I'm just looking at it like, how is that done? Again, you can probably explain it to me in the comments below if you've seen behind the scenes for it and stuff, but I think it's fucking cool. I like in movies like this one where they seem to like utilize and immerse real tribes people into it. Again, I can't speak on how they were treated or whatever, things like that, because I don't know. Maybe it wasn't such a great experience for them. I really don't know. But I just think it brings like this sense of like realism and kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, like humbleness and like innocence into like the filmmaking. Like, you've got these tribes people getting shot and they have like the spaghetti western arm sort of getting thrown around and stuff. I don't know, it just feels like just more wholesome and stuff. And with a movie where there's so much brutal stuff going on, I don't know, it's just something that I think is pretty cool. This movie really is just made up of so many impactful shots and scenes and things going on, some for better and some for worse, of course, because again, a lot of people will clump the animal scenes into impactful moments, and they're obviously for worse, but there's so many just shots and iconic things in this movie that are just so fucking cool, and even some underrated stuff that I think sort of gets overlooked. One part in this movie that always just makes me like rub my eyes and like kind of just laugh. It's like, is the scene where, the guy's narrating and he's like, I thought swimming naked in the river would gain the tribe's people's trust and whatever. So he starts swimming in the river naked, and then all these women from the tribe come into the water and start hanging around him and touching him and doing all this stuff, and it just makes me laugh because I just imagine like the actor being like, fine, I'll do the scene, but only if women get in there with me. And it's like, I don't know, like every time that scene comes on, I just like, I don't know, I just kind of blush and just rub my head like, oh my god. But there's just so many things in this movie like that. But the main thing that I brought up this topic for is because even though there's so many impactful shots and scenes and things like that, I think the most impactful thing with this movie is its messaging and what it represents and stands for. Because in this movie, and I guess it is sort of a spoiler for those who haven't seen this movie, but I think it's worth talking about because I think people do watch this movie and don't take this messaging from it. But in this movie, the original the original camera crew that went out there to document these tribes people and film them and whatever, the whole reason that they get killed and they do not return and everything is because they've made up a false narrative. They go in there and they already have it set in their mind. We're going to document these people as monsters, and we're going to go in there and they wreak havoc to their, their, I wouldn't call it houses, but like, where they're living, and they kill their food, and, they absolutely demolish what is home to these people, and they make these false stories and false claims, and they're just doing it to make themselves money and make themselves famous, and it's completely false. And there's a line in there, I'm gonna butcher it, but it's just something like, they went in to film monsters when actually they were the real monsters. They went into these other people's homes, and yes, it's not what we're accustomed to, and there's a lot of things that these tribes people that are doing that for us aren't morally correct, but it's what they know as life for them. So who are we to go in there and make this false narrative and turn things on their head and completely falsify things to a point where you're making it out to be something totally different. And I really like that messaging in this movie, and I think over the past handful of years a lot of people have pulled that messaging really strongly from this movie, and I think that's the strongest thing that this movie represents. I really, really like how it's depicted in this movie. Because by the end of it, when they're watching the recovered footage back, the whole reason they decide is like, okay, we can't show this is because they realize this original crew, they're the monsters, they're the villains. They went out there to falsify a story with the tribes people being that, but in fact it's the exact opposite, you know. Yeah, I think that's the main thing to take from this movie. If you have seen it before and you just thought, you know, it's gore and disturbing and over the top just for the sake of those reasons, no, there's a lot more context in there that I think could go over a lot of people's head. But with that being said, I think a lot of people have woken to that over, like I said, the past handful of years and are aware of that, hopefully. But getting to my rating out of 10, like I said, over the past handful of years, this is one that I've enjoyed coming back to more often. Even the first time I saw it, I liked it, but again, I watched this way too young, and I think a lot of the meanings and everything sort of just went over my head. I'm like, oh my god, they're beheading a turtle, and that was and that was just it for me being fucking young bakes. But I've grown up. I do like this movie. Probably not as high as what I feel like a lot of people have sort of come around to this one being, but 7.5 for me for Cannibal Holocaust. It is one that I do enjoy. Like I said, there's some moments in there that I wish didn't happen, but they happen, and all I need to do if, you know, it's becoming too much is turn my head. But yeah, thank you for joining me for today's review. Like I said, it is one of those controversial movies that everyone seems to have an opinion on, even if they haven't seen it, but feel free to let me know your thoughts of it in the comments below. And thank you for joining me for today's review. I'll see you tomorrow for day number 22. Appreciate it, guys.